Was it a major L for the black community when Will Smith went up on stage at the Academy Awards and slapped the hiss out of Chris Rock? The world seems to be talking about it. And Mo, in his podcast on Thursday, will be recording. It's called In the Moment. He's talking about this very thing because you're seeing a lot of people saying this was a major loss for the black community.
Yeah, so this was a really big debate over on Black Twitter yesterday. And when this incident happened, we had to report on it right away. Like you said earlier, we didn't really have 24 hours to really sit with it and digest it and think about what it really means in different ways.
Because, I mean, it happened at 10:30 Eastern, our time, and literally we're on the air by 6 a.m. the next morning. So there's we had literally just the clip from what we saw on the Oscars.
I almost didn't click on the story because I'm like, that's clearly clickbait. I mean, obviously, Will Smith didn't go on stage and smack Chris Rock. And then I clicked on it. I'm like, that's real?
Yeah. I assumed it was scripted and scrolled on by. And then we talked about it during the show. And then you guys watched instant replays, slow-mos, over and over again.
Yeah.
We didn't get too deep with it. We just watched it over and over again.
Exactly. And after the 20 or 30th time watching it, I was like, okay, this is real. I'm sold. If it's not real, they got me because everything about it seems real. And then the conversation started about what does this really do for black culture? And does it set the culture back? Does it embarrass black people? And I know Katie has a take on that, and it's different than mine because I don't necessarily think that it set black culture back because if the Oscars or if white people are not going to give black people in the future opportunities based on the fact that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at a moment like this, then they weren't going to do it in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I do, however, feel like it did embarrass black people. And a lot of that is because the Oscars a few years ago had the Oscar So White thing going where Jada and a lot of other black celebrities were boycotting the Oscars for reasons of feeling like we are not represented there. And then now you fast forward to this moment.
You have two black women hosting the Oscars.
You have two black women hosting the Oscars. You have Will Packer, an amazing producer, now getting to produce the Oscars. And we're excited to have all of these black amazing people be a part of this moment and to give us something that we have been asking for years.
Beyonce opening it up with her incredible performance.
Bingo. Anytime you start like that, like I'm all in. I mean, that almost kept me up, even though we had to get up. I wanted to see what else was coming behind Beyonce. And I was excited to wake up and see what I had missed after I saw that Beyonce opened it. And I mean, Will Smith is only the fifth black actor to win an Oscar in all of this time. And I think like people don't truly realize that. And it was his first Oscar. Like, this is a huge moment, not only for him, but for us, just in all. And I get it, man. I do get that you felt away for years probably with Chris Rock. Part of me does wonder if he would have done this to any other black comedian. Would you have done this to Chappelle, Cat Williams? I wonder, did you target Chris Rock? Because I feel like he did. And you probably have had these issues kind of brewing within you about Chris, and you took that moment to slap him. And to me, it definitely embarrassed us. I think when Will Packer spoke about how it was hurtful to him in a lot of different ways because it was his moment. It was his time to really like make something happen. And he promised us that this Oscars was not going to be boring. We were going to be represented. And, well, he was right about that part. And I just feel like for Will Smith to have built this entire reputation over his entire career of being a certain kind of guy and handling things a certain kind of way, and then to allow yourself to become that emotional in that moment that you choose that time and place. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have slapped Chris Rock for what he said about his wife. If that's what you felt like you needed to do, there's a time and a place. That wasn't it. And I do feel like it was an embarrassment to the culture for him to do that in that moment.
Interesting. Katie, I want to get your take on it here in 1 second, but I want to take this call from CJ. Hey, CJ, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I just wanted to say that I agree that it was wrong, but I don't think that it was an L for the black community at all.
Go ahead.
In the late 90s, when Tommy Lee punched Kid Rock in the face for talking about Pamela Anderson, was it an L for the white community? I don't think so.
It's a really good point, but there is a cultural difference here because 100%. When things like that happen, white people don't say this represents an entire culture.
No.
Where it's different for black people, right?
And we have to accept that as reality as much as we may not want to. How we represent ourselves in these environments, it does matter.
I agree. How we represent ourselves matters, but at the same time, it's basically, there was a speech, right? I can't remember who said it, but basically that the least protected woman in America is the black woman. right? And Will Smith mentioned this in his apology and in his speech that he went into protective mode to protect his wife and to defend his wife. And he publicly did that. So, yes, it was embarrassment, I think, on behalf of Black people. But at the same time, he stood up for his Black queen, which we don't get a lot of protection when it comes to things like that. So that's why I don't think it was a setback for the culture. If anything, it's saying this is what you don't do. And he publicly showed, you keep pushing, poking the bear, this is what's going to happen.
I think Tiffany Haddish had the same take. Like she yesterday was like the only one to step up and go, I thought it was beautiful that a man would stick up for his queen like that.
And I do think, again, he should have done that. He should have stepped up for his queen. Not in that moment. In my opinion, if there was something I felt like I needed to do for my wife, it would have been after the show. It would have been behind the scenes. I would have approached Chris, and we would have handled it the way we had to handle it. But in that moment, on that stage, and you slapping another Black man in that moment, I don't understand that one.
I agree. It shouldn't have been handled the way it was handled at all. He definitely should have done that differently. I don't just know how differently. Like, how can you get the message across, the message that he was trying to send with, like, publicly, though? Because you can do it behind the scenes.
I mean, could he have just stood up and said what he said rather than, like, slap him? Like, keep my wife's name out your bleeping
just
mouth.
verbally said it,
Yeah.
Or I think if he yells at Chris Rock that she has alopecia, that's a disease, then Chris Rock really looks like an idiot. Then there's no defending that at that point.
That would have been a checkmate. Everybody would have booed him at that point because I think it still kind of is a lot more representation, but it's still kind of Oscars so white. So he's doing that joke about Black women's hair to a mostly white audience. And if Will Smith would have fired that back, everybody would start booing Chris Rock. And awesome.
And Mo brought this up that I totally forgot about it, that Chris Rock had that documentary on hair and women.
I grew up with 3 sisters. I learned very early in my lifetime that a Black woman's hair is off limits. I don't ever make jokes about Black women's hair in my household, and Chris Rock did an entire documentary called Good Hair about this very thing, and then stood up there and did that.
All right, I know Mo will be talking more about it in his podcast that he'll record on Thursday, and it's called In the Moment, and you can find it anywhere.
The Bert Show.